Unlock your miraculous action, 3 spiritual keys to heavenly deliverance and divine manifestation. In the heart of a quaint English village, an unshakable spirit lingered in the air. Unlock your miraculous action, cried the old church bell, its peals echoing through the cobblestone streets, offering an invitation to divine intervention. As the wind swirled, carrying scents of blooming lavender and fresh-baked bread, hope shimmered like a golden halo above the weathered roofs. For Margaret, a devout mother, her faith became the steady anchor amidst a rising storm. Thomas, her once bright son, now danced on the precipice of despair, entrapped by shadows of addiction. Each day brought a new battle, not only for him but for their tight-knit community, which had long anchored their prayers and dreams within the ancient stones of the church. As Margaret knelt before the altar, tears streamed down her face like rain, each drop a desperate plea for grace. "O Lord," she whispered, "restore my son. Restore our hope." Suddenly, a flicker of light erupted in the dim chapel, a streak of illumination that twisted and turned like a gentle breeze. The parishioners gasped, eyes widening in disbelief. Margaret felt a warmth envelope her heart, whispering promises of healing. Could it be, she wondered, as the spirit of their patron saint seemed to hover close. God's presence was palpable, sending shivers of faith cascading through every soul within those hallowed walls. On one fateful evening, during a gathering of the faithful, Father William shared a vision of hope, a promise from above that whispered of miraculous strings of faith binding them together. "If we unite in fervent prayer," he declared, "miraculous action shall flow forth." The air crackled with tension and anticipation, a tidal wave ready to crash upon the shores of their despair. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days melted into one another, uncertainty crept through the village. Hope began to wither like a flower deprived of water. The confines of their faith felt heavy, suffocated by skepticism. They sought worldly solutions, confiding in therapists who only dug deeper into the rifts within Margaret's family. Desperation clawed at her heart, but something deep within whispered to hold on to the promise. One thunderous night, as lightning split the sky, Margaret gathered her fellow parishioners once more, each face illuminated by flickering candlelight. The storm raged outside, mirroring the chaos within her soul. "We must pray," she cried, her voice breaking amid the howling winds and pouring rain. "Let us unite, believe. For the Lord does not forsake us." Deep in the darkness, Thomas felt lost amidst the storm. But just as despair threatened to consume him, a flicker of something unmistakable surged within. Could it be? Could faith have the strength to pierce his overwhelming darkness? Hope shimmered faintly, a whisper amidst the chaos, leading him to truth. With the village holding its collective breath, Margaret's heart beat like a drum, anticipation mounting as she clung to the fabric of their shared belief. Would their prayers, united as one, break through the heavy clouds above? Or would doubt claim victory in this unseen battle? All eyes turned toward the heavens and held their breath, a powerful testament to resilience and unwavering hope. The answer loomed ever closer, caught between faith and despair. Would divine grace descend and envelop them all? The night was alive with possibility. As the storm raged on, the atmosphere crackled with an unmistakable energy, like a divine spark waiting to ignite. With every voice that joined Margaret's in fervent prayer, the air seemed to shimmer, filled with the weight of trembling faith. Each supplication rose like incense, curling towards the heavens, blending with the storm clouds that swirled ominously above. "Lord, we come before you, united in spirit," Margaret's voice rose above the cacophony of wind. "We ask for your mercy, your healing touch." Tears streamed down her cheeks, mingling with the rain. Beside her, familiar faces glimmered in the candlelight, neighbors bound by shared prayers and deep-rooted conviction. They were each a facet of faith, holding their unique stories of struggle and joy. A sudden gust of wind swept through the chapel, extinguishing a few candles, but more than flames flickered in that moment. Souls stirred with anticipation, hearts beating faster as if intuitively sensing something extraordinary about to unfold. Whispers began to echo through the room, punctuated by gasps of astonishment. Someone knelt at the front, eyes closed and hands raised, embodying a deep surrender to the moment. "Can you feel that?" A voice from the back called out, wonder coloring the words. "It's like he is here with us." Indeed, Margaret leaned into the sensation, a warmth enveloping her spirit, a soft glow illuminating the darkness that surrounded them. The promise of healing, of restoration, filled the heavy air like a profound truth waiting to be unveiled. Meanwhile, Thomas, cloaked in his own darkness, sat isolated amidst the tumult of his inner world. The storm outside reverberated with the chaos within him, but for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope spark to life. The urgency in his mother's voice rang through his mind like a melodic echo, urging him to remember who he truly was underneath the layers of shame and pain. As if pulled by an unseen thread, Thomas lifted his gaze towards the heavens beyond the barred window. Distant thunder boomed, yet a gentle rain began to fall inside him, a soft release of tensions, a moment of grace, each raindrop a drop of possibility washing away despair. In that split second, something shifted. The tapestry of love woven by his mother and community called to him, unraveling the chains that bound him. "Dear God, if you are there," he whispered, voice trembling but filled with raw sincerity. "Show me your light." As wordless prayers swept through the chapel, Father William stood at the altar, his heart swelling as he sensed a surge of faith coursing through the gathered congregation. "Let our voices rise," he encouraged, stretching his arms wide, inviting the Holy Spirit to penetrate every heart present. "Let us declare victory over despair." With renewed fervency, the congregation lifted their voices in harmonious unison, a chorus of devotion piercing the storm. Each prayer melded together, creating a symphony of hope that floated skyward, vibrating with an energy that announced their refusal to be defeated. In that sacred moment, Margaret felt a swell of joy and purpose. Together, they were breaking through the uncertainty. She could almost hear the wings of angels stirring, mingling with the harmonies of her neighbors. But just as hope began to blossom, darkness threatened to rear its head. Thomas, on the cusp of surrender, suddenly felt a wave of doubt crash over him, clouding the fragile light that had begun to take root. For every glimpse of faith he found, shadows danced, reminding him of past failures, of the promise of addiction clawing at his very essence. Would the prayers go unanswered? Would the village be left in despair once more? The heart of the storm echoed these unspoken questions, leaving everyone wondering if divine intervention was drawing near. What awaited them next? A breakthrough? A miracle? Or perhaps an even greater test of their faith? As the crescendo of voices enveloped the chapel, something shifted in the atmosphere. It was as if the very air itself was pregnant with expectation, buzzing with a presence that beckoned everyone to lean in. Margaret closed her eyes, surrendering to the moment. The storm outside may have rattled windows and souls, but inside, hope danced in the flickering candlelight, weaving its way into every heart present. "Feel him," she urged, her words rising above the storm's roar. The energy thickened, pulsing like a heartbeat, drawing everyone closer together, a living tapestry of faith intertwined. Hands clasped tightly, they became one body, one voice, speaking into the heavens with tenacity and fervor. Thomas felt the warmth of his community wrap around him like a comforting blanket. Their prayers were tangible, his heart began to race. He felt the weight of doubt pressing down on him, yet the flicker of hope grew brighter. What if, he thought, what if this time is different? The thundering storm outside shifted to a gentle whisper, as if in agreement with the collective yearning inside. All around him, faces of family, friends, and humble neighbors glowed with both tears and resolve. In that moment, each person seemed like a lighthouse, guiding him through chaotic waves of his past. "Lord, reveal yourself to us." A voice called from the back, igniting the energy within them further. The prayers became bolder, sharper, each word adding fuel to the growing fire of faith. The chapel transformed into a sanctuary of belief, alive with anticipation. "Can you see it?" A grandmother's voice rose, trembling yet steadfast, her wrinkled hands clasped tightly. "The chains are breaking. The light is coming." Suddenly, Thomas felt a surge of warmth flow through him, igniting a flicker of courage he hadn't felt in years. His heart, once heavy with burdens, now felt lightened, as if shedding old chains. Encouraged by the Spirit moving around him, he stood. "God," he breathed. "I want to feel your presence." Father William, observing Thomas's resolve grow stronger, stepped towards him. "You are not alone," he proclaimed, his voice rich with authority. "Stand firm in the knowledge that the love around you will lift you." Margaret caught Thomas's eye, and for a moment, their souls connected. She saw a glimpse of the boy he used to be, vibrant, joyful, full of life. And she felt fierce love surge through her, praying in that moment for a new beginning for him. "You are worthy of healing," she shouted, her voice soaring above the others. Each parched heart in that chapel drank deeply from the well of faith, quenching a thirst only God could fill. With every minute passing, old doubts began to evaporate like mist under the morning sun, revealing vibrant colors of hope and trust. Then, as if ignited by their prayers, a soft light flickered in the corner of the chapel, drawing eyes towards its radiance. Gasps escaped the lips of the congregation, or wrapping around them like a shawl. "It's him. He is here." Someone gasped, excitement thrumming through the air. The atmosphere seemed to crackle even more, punctuated by gentle whispers and astonished exclamations. Each heart resonated with the promise cradled in the light, weaving together their faith in an extraordinary spectacle that called all to witness. But just as the light blossomed, a shadow flickered across Thomas's mind. Was he truly ready to embrace it? Would he be able to withstand the truth of this moment? Doubts lingered at the edges of his heart, whispering possibilities of slipping back into old habits. As the candlelight swayed, illuminating the faces of hope and desperation, Thomas felt the weight of those choices before him. Perhaps the light beckoned victory, but did he dare step into the freedom that awaited him? Could this be the moment that defined them all, or would they retreat once more into uncertainty? Only the unfolding of their intertwined destinies would reveal if they were prepared to embrace the miracle before them. As the warm glow of light enveloped the chapel, Thomas felt a palpable shift within himself. It was as if the soft radiance was not just illuminating the space but also piercing through the shadows of doubt that clung to his heart. Around him, the congregation leaned in, their faces reflecting wonderment and speculations of faith interwoven with uncertainty. Margaret could sense the transformation taking place. This was a pivotal moment, one that could weave new threads into the fabric of their lives. "This is our time," she exclaimed, her voice rich with unshakable conviction. "Pray. Pray." A chorus began, rolling like waves echoing from the lips of those assembled. They closed the gap between their desires and the divine, each voice lifting higher toward the heavens. Thomas's gaze darted to the light, flickering softly, almost teasingly. Each heartbeat drew him closer, each prayer a thread woven into his very being. "Come forth," Father William urged, stepping into the embrace of the illuminating warmth. The Spirit moved boldly through him, compelling those around to take bold steps of faith. A palpable excitement bubbled through the hearts of the faithful. "Seek him, and believe in his power to heal." With each word, Thomas felt the walls of fear begin to crumble. He had stood at the threshold of choice before, but never like this. Sweat broke on his brow as he fought to reconcile the person he was with the man he yearned to become. Was he ready? The thought gripped him, stirring something deep inside. Then, within the heavy silence that followed, he heard a familiar voice, his own, yet transformed. "Lord, I want to accept your healing," he whispered, stepping closer to the flame of hope now ignited. A gasp swept through the congregation, eyes wide and hearts racing. "Did you hear that?" someone murmured, as though Thomas's confession rattled the fabric of faith itself. "He is moving." The sanctuary pulsed with expectancy. Encouraged by the warmth of shared belief, Thomas clenched his fists, heart pounding. He took another small step forward, and a hush fell upon the crowd. The air thickened, each breath a spiritual tether connecting them to something monumental. Trust. Margaret's voice rang through, filled with a motherly warmth that wrapped around Thomas. You were created for this. Stand firm. An electric energy hummed all around, igniting yearning in every heart. The shadows of doubt faded, replaced by a kaleidoscope of prayer, love, and hope. Thomas looked around, eyes darting from one familiar face to the next. Each held stories of joy and pain, of battles fought and won, all cradled in this sacred moment. As the flickering light intensified, it felt as if an invitation was being extended to him. He inhaled deeply, unleashing a flood of pent-up fear with every breath. Lord, I believe. He cried, letting go of his resistance. I want to be healed. The word struck like a bell, resonating with others who clung to their own needs for healing. All at once, murmurs gathered strength, weaving a tapestry of collective faith. Let us all heal. They echoed, igniting a fire that spread quickly through the chapel. Suddenly, in that sacred space, the light pulsed brighter, illuminating the corners of the chapel as if revealing hidden blessings. Each flicker was a promise, each shadow retreating from the encroaching warmth. But just then, uncertainty crept back into Thomas's heart. He felt it in the pit of his stomach, a lingering hesitation. Would he truly embrace this healing? Were the chains he sought to shed truly ready to fall away? The murmurs subsided, and a profound silence blanketed the room again. As Thomas wrestled with the gravity of his decision, the light blazed fiercely, shattering the lingering shadows. What was God calling him to in this very moment? Could he trust the promise of renewal laid before him? The chapel buzzed with anticipation and prayers. The air was thick with desire for transformation, and yet Thomas remained at the crossroads. He felt the intensity rise, knowing that the moment to unlock miraculous action was now. What would he choose? The weight of the moment hung heavy, heralding a divine intersection of trust and faith that awaited exploration. In the depths of that sacred silence, Thomas felt his heart quicken. Each beat roared through him, like a drum echoing in the stillness. The air around him trembled with expectancy, and he could feel the collective hope saturating the chapel. It was as if every gaze was a beacon, urging him forward, intertwining their faith with his, as if they were all woven into a tapestry of yearning. Lord, I believe. The words rang out again, louder and more assured this time, echoing in the cavernous silence. Thomas couldn't tell if they came from his own lips or if it was the voice of the assembly joining him in that declaration. He grasped that faith was contagious, sparking hope in the hearts of everyone present. Father William held his arms wide, inviting Thomas into the light. You are not alone, my child. Bring forth your burdens. Let the Lord's grace wash over you. He stepped back, making space for the transformative power that was building before them. The congregation leaned in, their faces taut with anticipation. Encouraged, Thomas took a step forward, feeling gravity give way under the weight of his hesitations. With each stride, he felt the shadows of doubt loosening their grip. Could this truly be the moment? He pondered silently. Waves of divine love cascaded over him, washing away his fears. With renewed fervor, Thomas could feel the warmth of a promise beginning to unfurl within him. As if sensing this, Margaret stepped closer. Remember, Thomas, God is bigger than your fears. He has a plan for your healing that far exceeds what we can see. Let him move through you. Believe. Urged another voice from the back. The congregation echoed those words, their faith wrapping around him like a warm blanket, banishing the chill of uncertainty. The light intensified, transforming the chapel into a radiant sanctuary where miracles seemed possible. It pulsed softly, alluring Thomas, inviting him deeper into faith. He focused on the flickering glow, the energy buzzing and crackling with life. It seemed to beckon not just to him but to all who were ready to embrace the unknown. In the depths of his soul, the battle between doubt and belief raged on. But in that struggle, something remarkable shifted. He understood he was not just seeking healing for himself but symbolizing the longing of many yearning souls. As the collective fervor grew, it ignited a shift in Thomas. He realized that surrendering his fears was not a loss, but rather a profound gain. He could release the chains that had held him captive for so long. Suddenly, in the intensity of that moment, something new sprang forth. It was a lightness in his heart, a tender realization that healing begins not just with words, but with an open heart ready to receive. "I want this," he cried out, his voice rising over the gathering. "I choose to trust." In that instant, the horizon of possibilities widened, revealing a path ahead filled with divine potential. The congregation erupted into spontaneous praise, their voices joining in a symphony of worship. They celebrated the assurance that in their vulnerability lay strength, united in their purpose. But Thomas felt a pull, an invitation to step even further into the light. What comes next? He wondered, the question hanging in the air like a sacred offering. As the light pulsed with renewed energy, illuminating the truth of transformation, a shiver ran down his spine. Healing was not only about what he would receive, it was about what he would give, and how he would share his journey with others. The murmurs of the room faded into whispers of prayer, as anticipation hung in the sacred air. Thomas took a deep breath, ready to dive deeper into faith. As he prepared to plunge into this new phase of his life, he pondered, was he ready to unlock the miraculous actions ahead of him? What awaited him beyond that radiant light? The mysteries of divine intervention were just beginning to unfold. Thomas stood before the radiant light, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The whispers around him swirled like a gentle breeze, filled with prayers and hopeful hearts. Each breath he took felt like an invitation, a doorway to something profoundly sacred. He could feel the weight of expectations, not only his own but of the community gathered as one body, seeking something more. A deep calm enveloped him. It was as if the light recognized his struggle, dancing playfully around him, urging him toward greater trust. He took another step forward, this time with a clearer sense of purpose. The words of Father William echoed in his mind, the call to bring forth his burdens. It was an act of courage, a commitment to step into the divine embrace with all he was and all he hoped to be. "Lord, I trust in your path," he whispered, eyes closing against the glaring glow. In that moment, the tension cracked open like a fragile shell. Doubts that had once felt insurmountable began to crumble, replaced by a stirring anticipation that mingled with hope. He sensed the sacred energy gathering around him, an unshakable assurance that he was not alone. Suddenly, Margaret stepped forward, her eyes lit with fervent belief. "This is the moment, Thomas. Let your heart be open to his transforming grace." Her words were like wings, lifting his spirit higher. He opened his eyes to meet hers, seeing in her a reflection of his own longing. Together, they stood at the brink of the unknown, united by faith. The congregation swelled behind him, a mighty chorus of voices lifting toward heaven. It was as if the walls of the chapel emanated life, vibrating with the harmony of their beliefs. Each voice added to a growing pulse, a rhythm that intertwined their souls and surged toward the divine. "Together we rise," shouted a man from the pews. "We believe in the impossible." His declaration hung in the air, alive with conviction. Thomas felt his heart soar. They were one heart, one spirit, yearning for transformation. In those precious moments, Thomas understood he had a role to play beyond his own healing. This was about collective hope, about being a vessel for the grace bestowed upon him. As the warmth continued to embrace him, he lifting his hands toward the light overhead, surrendering himself completely, his heart began to fill with an inexplicable peace. "I'm ready, Lord. Lead me to my purpose," he breathed, allowing the sacred air to fill his lungs deeply. The chapel seemed to respond, the light becoming warmer, brighter, stirring with the lively spark of divine potential. Before him loomed the horizon of possibility, bright and inviting. All the unanswered questions hung in the air, glimmering like stars on a clear night. Each twinkle seemed to whisper of miracles yet to unfold. But amidst the wonder, doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. What if I fail? What if? The light pulsed again, radiating reassurance that chased away the shadows of uncertainty. He felt the warmth flood through his veins, illuminating his spirit and igniting a fire within. The fear began to fade, replaced by an unyielding determination fueled by the love surrounding him. It was in this clarity that it struck him a realization that would mark the beginning of a grand adventure. Healing was not solely about him, it was about bearing witness to God's glory through his life. With renewed vigor, Thomas declared, "I will share this journey. I will testify to your goodness." The congregation erupted in praise, their voices mingling in a divine echo. Everything changed with that acceptance. The atmosphere crackled with the promise of new beginnings, authentic and alive. What awaited them at the edge of this transformation? What lessons would unfold in the days to come? The exploration of divine purpose loomed ahead, ready to unfurl its secrets as they took steps deeper into faith's embrace. As the praises echoed like a heavenly chorus, Thomas felt the warmth of the congregation's hope wrap around him like a comforting blanket. Each shout and cheer was a wave, lifting him higher, washing away remnants of doubt. He remained, hands outstretched, almost as if he were taking a new breath along with the collective spirit around him. The light intensified, and he could sense the divine presence swirling in every corner of the chapel. Not just a beautiful glow, but a powerful energy, a heartbeat of heaven intertwining with their devotion. Thomas glanced around, meeting the eyes of familiar faces lit with fervor, each witnessing their journey to purpose unfold. They were bonded by something much greater than themselves. "Let us pray together." Margaret's voice soared, confident and inviting. One by one, the community bowed their heads, creating an ocean of trust and unity. Thomas felt his heart rhythm synchronize with theirs, a resonance that filled the room with palpable grace. "Lord, we seek your vision," Margaret began, and the congregation joined in. Their words melded into a unified plea, punctuated by fervent amens that lifted higher and higher, like an incense rising to the heavens. With every word, Thomas surrendered a piece of himself into the prayer. His burdens, his fears, and his aspirations took flight with each invocation. It was as if the very air shimmered with divine possibility. Each breath was a pathway to freedom. As they prayed, he glimpsed flickers of future endeavors ahead, helping those lost in darkness, bringing light to the broken and weary. The excitement surged through him like electricity, crackling with divine intent. "I am not just an observer, I am a participant," he thought, emboldened by the revelation. "Let us be vessels of your grace," the congregation cried together. At that moment, Thomas understood, they were not merely praying for themselves but for the world. Each whispered intention was a seed of change, ready to take root in the hearts of many. A gentle breeze flowed through the chapel, carrying the scent of flowers and faith. It felt like a tangible answer, a distinct sign that the divine was indeed moving among them. Thomas marveled at the beauty of collective prayer. It was not just words but a transformative act, pulsing with the energy of their resolve. Then, a stillness enveloped the room. They held their breath, hearts collectively attuned, waiting in anticipation for what was to unfold. Just then, an extraordinary warmth washed over Thomas, enveloping him in waves of peace. "Open your heart wider," he felt it whisper. It was both an invitation and a challenge, calling him to dig even deeper into the well of his faith. What could he lose in that leap? As the spaciousness within him expanded with that thought, desire turned into action, his eyes sparkled as he lifted his head, emboldened. "Here I am, Lord. I am ready to be used." The energy in the room shifted, a collective stirring propelling them forward. Together, they stood, mirroring the light streaming from above, as if they were reflections of God's grace. "Freedom is calling." A voice rang out. "We must bless the world around us." A fervent agreement rippled through the chapel. The congregation was ready, ignited by the fire within Thomas' heart. But just as their spirits soared, Thomas hesitated again, with a question lingering in his thoughts. What exactly does that look like? In the stillness that followed, Thomas took a step toward the light once more. The possibilities hung before him like an uncharted map, each trail leading to the unknown. Yet one thing became clear: every journey begins with a single step. But which one would it be? What awaited them beyond this moment of surrender? What divine instructions lay hidden in the embrace of that brilliant light? The quest for clarity began. Thomas stood at the brink, his heart racing with both excitement and anxiety. The congregation around him seemed to shimmer, their faces reflecting the glory of what was unfolding. This was a moment filled with promise, like dawn breaking after a long night. But still, that question gnawed at him: what does it look like? He inhaled deeply, letting the sacred air fill his lungs. Every person present seemed to vibrate with purpose, each heartbeat a promise of what was possible. The ancient walls of the chapel seemed to lean in closer, eager to catch the whispers of destiny that floated through the air. As the light pulsed, illuminating their spirits, he felt a movement beside him. It was Margaret. "Thomas," she said quietly, her sincerity piercing through the cacophony of thoughts. "We are all vessels. It's not about knowing every detail, it's about being open and willing to be used. Let the Spirit guide you." Her affirmation resonated deep within him. He watched others, their eyes glistening with anticipation, each one a unique thread in the tapestry of faith being woven before him. It became clearer, they were not alone. Their collective bravery painted a picture of divine potential, a canvas wide enough for each and every one of them to take part. "Isn't it incredible," Thomas began, voice barely above a whisper, "that we can each contribute to something so much bigger than ourselves?" He looked over the congregation, searching the faces for recognition. A murmur of agreement swept through them. It felt like an invisible current binding their spirits together. "Exactly," Margaret exclaimed, her energy infectious. "It requires faith to step into the unknown, to truly embrace what God has for us. But when we do, miracles follow." Miracles. A chorus of amens erupted, echoing against the chapel walls. Thomas' heart soared, the atmosphere thickened with the shared belief that something monumental was brewing, that he began to visualize the possibilities once more, unfurling like a map guiding him toward uncharted lands. What if they structured outreach programs? What if they initiated healing circles? What if they opened their doors wider to the community? Each thought ignited a flame within him, illuminating a pathway forward. "Let us be bold," he proclaimed, unable to suppress the swell of passion. "Let us not just dream but act." A ripple of enthusiasm sparked through the crowd. They rallied, each ignited by the fire of their shared vision. Ideas blossomed like wildflowers in springtime, plans for feeding the hungry, comforting the lonely, and providing hope to the lost. "Remember, it begins with prayer," Margaret encouraged, leading them into another moment of united seeking. "Let us ask God to show us our next steps." In that moment of prayer, another warmth washed over Thomas, like the sun breaking through clouds. His spirit drank it in, and clarity flickered before him. He sought not just clarity for himself but was burdened for others. Each intention lifted up was a prayer for partnership, alignment with divine purpose. As he stood in that circle of prayer, he felt the weight of longing and expectation, an invitation to lean in, and let creativity be birthed from their collective faith. The trembling of uncertainty gave way to a greater strength. And as they concluded the prayer, a hush fell over them once again. It was almost electric, something was about to happen. "Are you ready?" he asked, feeling a shift in the atmosphere. An expectant silence hung like a veil, thick with possibility. Each heart seemed to echo back, "Yes." But in that sacred weight, Thomas felt a pull. What if we don't know the risks? What if we fail? Doubt whispered alongside the budding courage. Those thoughts intertwined, creating a web of tension. Could their faith withstand the trials ahead? Could they turn those visions into reality, despite the unknowns lurking in the shadows? With that lingering uncertainty, he took a deep breath. "Lord, guide us." The next chapter awaited, filled with divine invitations and perhaps the most significant challenges they would have to face together. What was God preparing them for next? The air grew thick with a sacred anticipation as Thomas stood at the center of the chapel, eyes wide with both vision and uncertainty. With the tinkling of bells above, the atmosphere felt like a dawning light, awakening dreams that lay dormant in the hearts of those gathered. This was no ordinary moment, something remarkable was calling to them. God has a plan, he murmured, almost to himself. He felt the words sink into the fabric of the room, wrapping around everyone like a comforting embrace. Each soul present was a testimony to life's richness, each carrying stories woven together by faith, loss, hope, and redemption. Margaret stepped forward and spoke with affirming clarity, "This isn't just about what we will build or what we can achieve. It's about transformation. We are here to be transformed and to transform others." She looked around, as if she could see their unspoken fears, brushing away the doubts with her conviction. As he glanced at the familiar faces, Thomas could see that the flicker of hope ignited within them all. It was the kind of hope that spoke not merely of possibility but of inevitability, the certainty that God is always up to something good. Feeling the pulse of the moment surge through him, Thomas raised his arms. "If we want to see miracles, we must step into this unknown." His voice resonated, bouncing playfully against the arches of the holy space. "Let us commit ourselves to seeking, truly seeking, not just answers, but his heart." "Commitment," echoed a voice from the back, a younger man with eager eyes. "We need to commit ourselves in prayer, in service, and even in sacrifice." "Yes," Thomas exclaimed, excitement coursing through him. "Let us become vessels of his grace. Let us not hold back because we fear the outcome. It's not about us, it's about him." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the congregation, their collective faith building like a flame, capturing the essence of community where every individual heart contributed to the collective spirit. The very walls of the chapel seemed to pulse with energy, as if affirming their unified intention. "Can we take a step of faith today?" Margaret encouraged, her eyes sparkling with conviction. "Can we take a moment to pray for those we will serve, for the lives we will touch? That is where the miracles begin." With that, the congregation joined in another moment of prayer, hearts lifting toward the heavens, a chorus of intentions bubbling up like fresh spring water. Thomas bowed his head, the words of each supplicant intertwining with the whispers of his own heart. Then, there was again the warmth. A lightness that flooded the space, dispelling the shadows of uncertainty that had lingered. Suddenly, he was reminded that God's presence thrives in faith-filled environments where hope is not just spoken, but lived out. But then, as the fervor reached its peak, a stillness settled. It was an invitation to discern the divine whispers in the quiet. In the hush, Thomas felt the nudge again, the stirring of the Spirit. "We can't do this alone. We need to rely on each other." A sense of responsibility wrapped around his heart. There was a destiny to fulfill that extended far beyond their immediate circle. What they were planning was not merely for themselves, it was part of a greater tapestry, drawing in the disenfranchised, the downtrodden, and the broken-hearted. Just then, a thought struck him, almost audibly: what if our next step is an invitation into greater vulnerability? What if opening our doors requires us to face the very darkness we wish to dispel? Turning to the group, Thomas asked the question that trembled on his lips: are we ready to embrace what's next, even if it feels uncomfortable? Are we willing to change? Silence lingered for a heartbeat. Then, that eager young man spoke again: "Yes. God brought us here for a reason. We can face any challenge if we stand together. Then let us pray for faith to be bold and for hearts to be transformed." Thomas called out, hope and courage flooding through him anew. Together, they bowed, aware that they were on the verge of a divine adventure, one that would stretch their faith and test their resolve. As Thomas led them in prayer, the weight of potential grew heavy in the air. Little did they know, the real challenges awaited just beyond the veil of their faith. What trials and triumphs were God preparing for them, and how would they learn to navigate this new chapter in their shared journey? Thomas stood before the altar, the soft glow of candles flickering around him like guiding stars. A profound peace enveloped him, a sense that echoes of prayer had bridged the gap between heaven and earth. The congregation's voices, unified in faith and love, flowed like a mighty river, coursing through the chapel. Together, they had reached this moment, a moment where hope and determination tangled in the air. "Here I am, Lord." He breathed, his heart resolute. "I'm ready for your purpose." His declaration resonated throughout the sacred space, weaving into the fabric of their shared journey. Outside, the last remnants of the storm drifted away, making way for a serenity that mirrored the stillness within. Margaret, a steadfast pillar, took a step forward. "Thomas," she said, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, "you have already begun to heal. You are a testament to what God can do. Your journey matters for all of us." The warmth in that room surged. Silence fell briefly, hearts leaned in together, recalling the struggles they had shared, the nights spent in tears, and the prayers whispered into darkness. "Faith calls us to rise," Father William added, his heart swelling with joy. "We are not only here to bask in our own healing but to bring light to others. Through darkness, we must become beacons." With every word, they stirred the embers of hope into a blazing fire. Thomas felt the urgency of purpose wash over him, invigorating his spirit. The tapestry they had woven could extend beyond their village, growing into something magnificent. "Let us make an impact beyond these walls," he proclaimed, his passion igniting the congregation. Margaret returned to prayer. "Lord, fill our hearts with courage. Strengthen our hands for service, our minds for clarity, and our souls for unconditional love. Let us not shy away from our next steps, even if they lead us to unknown challenges." The energy pulsed in the chapel, filling every nook, every life with purpose. Thomas watched as neighbors smiled, tears of joy glistening in their eyes while nodding in agreement. Faith revitalized them. They were ready to take on whatever came next: the healing, the service, the reaching out. Suddenly, an elderly woman in the back stood up, her voice shaky but resolute. "I may not move like I used to, but I can pray. I can encourage others." Her words echoed the call to action. "Together, we can embrace our weaknesses," shouted another member, lifting her hands high. "Let us be vessels of change, ready to help others find their strength." In that moment it was clear this journey was no longer just about Thomas or Margaret. It was about the collective heartbeat of a community united under the banner of love, seeking a greater purpose. They were no longer held captive by their pasts. Instead, they had surged forward, hearts intertwined, ready to face whatever God had in store. With renewed conviction, Thomas stepped deeper into the warmth and light that radiated around him. "We can run initiatives," he suggested. "We can provide meals, resources, and support for those in need. We can share our testimonies to inspire others. Healing isn't just for us, it's for everyone." "Yes." Voices erupted, enthused with enthusiasm. They envisioned feeding the hungry, comforting the broken-hearted, and creating a haven for all. As they lingered in this collective vision, joy erupted into songs of praise, lifting spirits toward the heavens. Each note rang out a commitment, a promise to God and one another. Thomas realized they had blossomed into something much more than a congregation. They were now a family, steadfast in faith, committed to their divine calling, and in that moment, clarity washed over Thomas's heart. They were ready to be a light, ready to embrace the uncomfortable, ready to seek the transformative adventure that awaited. They would not merely sit and wait for miracles, they would step boldly into God's plan and bear witness to what He could accomplish through their hearts. As the last notes of their joyful song faded into silence, a lingering warmth enveloped them, filling their spirits with conviction and hope. Who could tell what awaited beyond the chapel doors? Would victories emerge? Would struggles initiate strength? "We will only find out together," Thomas concluded, breathless with expectation. The light continued to shine brightly within him, radiating beyond the walls. They would go out together, leaving behind the fears that had once shadowed them. A journey of healing was born, fueled by faith, community, and the divine promise of restoration. With laughter in the air, hands held high, they exited the chapel. A warmth surged through them, inviting clarity, revealing purpose, and echoing a singular truth: divine manifestation was unfolding. Together, they would witness the miraculous. As they stepped into the light, a new chapter began, and they grabbed hold of the promise that their faith would be tested and affirmed in every heartbeat of love. Don't let this moment slip away. You need to subscribe now to witness the next exclusive faith stories. Your like today feeds the algorithm, allowing this message to reach those who need it. Comment your witness to this powerful ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who hunger for a touch from the divine. Join us as we carry this message of hope forward.